Hi everyone. Well, it's been another week of the COVID-19 lockdown. You can see that I'm growing my quarantine beard here. Not sure where all these little gray hairs are coming from, but I hope you're all staying safe and healthy, and thank you for the sacrifices that you're making. I know it's difficult in these unprecedented times. Today I want to talk about the cost of this. Where is all the money coming from for these programs that we're paying? Now, quick example. You've all heard about the $2,000 a month wage subsidy. About 5 million people have applied for this and counting. There's more all the time. So let's do some real simple math. 5 million times 2,000. So 5 million times 2 is 10 million. Add a zero is 100 million. Add a zero is a billion. Add another zero is $10 billion. So $10 billion is the cost of this program for 1 month. That's a huge, staggering number. Now, just to put it into perspective, in 2015, when the Liberals came to power, there was a budget surplus of about $1 billion. Last year, the Liberals projected about a $20 billion deficit, which was significantly larger than a balanced budget. But the PBO is today projecting a deficit of $184 billion. That's nearly 10 times what the original budget deficit projection was for this year. This is a staggering number. It's a huge number. It's a number that we don't even know what to do with. It's so big. Now, where does the money come from? Well, the government has a massive credit card. The government can put money on the credit card for quite a long time. And what do we know about credit cards? They have to get repaid. Now, I want to show you a couple of charts to help illustrate this. The first one is the amount of debt that the Canadian government has had over the years. If you look back on the left side, you can see that World War II in the late 40s brought us into the 50s and 60s, and our debts were very, very low, our net amount of debt. And then in 1981, we had a pretty difficult recession, which caused our deficit to start to grow, and our net debt really started to climb. There was another recession in 92, which helped it climb even further. And then you'll see a period there where the amount of debt we had actually decreased, and we'll talk about that in a second. In 2008, 2009 was the last Great Recession, and you can see how our debt then started to climb again and has somewhat plateaued since then until this year, when you can see on the red line, it is going to skyrocket from $700 billion up to over $900 billion, depending on where this year ends up. That's a phenomenally large number. In previous times, you can see it's taken about a decade for us to grow $200 billion of debt. We're going to do that in 1 year. Now, I have another chart that I want to show you. This is the chart of net debt to GDP. So often people say, well, it doesn't matter how much debt we have as long as our GDP is growing, our economy is growing, and we can afford the debt. Well, I'm not going to debate that one back and forth, but if we look at the actual numbers, you can see that in the 60s, our debt to GDP ratio was quite good and dropping. And then in the mid-70s, it started to climb. And every single year it climbed up until about the mid-90s, when it started to drop substantially. And then in the last few years, it's been plateaued in the low 30% range. But see, this last year now, the very last year on the graph, is going to be this year, where we're going to jump up over 40% again. That puts us back to where we were back in the early 80s. Now, why did the GDP ratio drop from 95 to 2005? Well, at that point, it had been growing and growing and growing, got up to about 67%. We were struggling to pay our interest charges as a country, and we were struggling to borrow money because borrowers weren't trusting that we'd be able to pay it back. They did not trust the financial stability of the Canadian economy. So we were forced to make changes. And so we reduced program spending, we increased taxes. It was a tough time for everybody, and many sacrifices were made. But the upside of it is that we did reduce our debt. We reduced our debt to GDP ratio. What we cannot afford is to start the same climb again like we did and get us into a point where we're forced to do things that we don't want to do. So, what do we do? Well, the first thing I would say is that we have to stop this spending soon. We have to find a way to stop spending all this extra money on supporting individuals through this time, because we can't afford it. It's $100+ billion for 3 to 4 months here. If it goes on for another 3 or 4 months, it's another $100 billion. We simply don't have that kind of money. So how do we fix this? Well, we need to get our economy working again. It's only our economy that can produce the jobs, the income, and the tax revenues that will allow us to return to a normal life, get our government functioning again, get our debts paid down, and get ourselves working with jobs and incomes. And in doing so, we have to be careful that we don't focus too much on unproven ideas. We need to go to our tried and true income producers, our manufacturing sector, our resource sector, our agriculture sector. These are areas that produce good quality jobs, they produce products that the world needs, they produce income and tax revenues. That's where we need to focus. So people stay safe, stay healthy, stay patient. I know this is difficult, but we will get the economy rolling again once it is safe to do so. And as always, if you have issues or problems with the federal government, please contact our office. We can help you out. Thanks, everyone.